Hello, so today I was hoping to explain a little bit about how to get started with simulating X-Plane 10 and ArduPilot together. There's a lot of different problems you might run into with just annoying setup problems, and I was hoping that this video could help with that. So I think it's really important for you to, read the documentation. It's a superpower that'll help with everything you do. So I honestly think it's just fun to read rgpilot.org/dev. This is the link you're going to go to start off. So this explains a little bit about how software in the loop simulation works. So it can simulate any of these vehicles. The thing you got to remember is that there is a architecture here. This system's architecture diagram is really important to understanding how things work. So how simulation basically works is that ArduCopter, ArduPlane, ArduRover, ArduPilot, whatever, can be run on just about any operating system. Now the timing requirements might be a little bit different, so you might need to run it on. So the reason that's why you run it on CheapOS when you're actually on a Pixhawk. But anyways, you can run ArduCopter, ArduPlane on anything because the software is portable. So in this case, we're running ArduPilot on Windows 10 as an executable. So the way that it communicates with the rest of the world is it gets sensor inputs from a simulator. So the simulator will send at something like 900 hertz the different sensor readings, which is the orientation, the yaw, the accelerometers, the GPS. Funny thing about X-Plane 10 is it actually isn't quite fast enough, so ArduCopter, when it's working with X-Plane 10, knows to interpolate the data points between those. And then it sends over UDP ports commands like what the different control surfaces should be at and whatever. So you got to remember that the physics simulation and the front end, they don't necessarily need to be the same piece of software. So the way that this works for most developers is that they use a physics simulator like JSBSim, and then on the front end of that, they sometimes attach flight gear, which provides a visual reference for how planes, will look when they're flying. It's also like, I think for beginners, it's important to have that front end visual because otherwise you will not have really the confidence that what you're doing is correct. So in this case, X-Plane has a physics simulation and networking part of it, but it also has a front end. So in our case, we're going to be using X-Plane physics simulation and X-Plane front end. So how are we going to be communicating with it? Well, in this case, we're going to be talking to Mission Planner over TCP port 5760. So if you want to attach your own ground control station, like maybe maybe using Python Mavlink or C Mavlink, then you're going to actually have to be using this interface here, which is having mavproxy talk on this TCP port, and then forwarding the Mavlink commands to your ground control station. I think that this should be a double-way communication. I haven't actually gotten other ground control stations working via the mavproxy send through, so I don't know for sure how this is supposed to work. But in theory, that's how you would be simulating the connection. But we're going to need to test that out. So, but for today, we're just going to be using the ground control station mission planner. And I'm going to be showing a little bit about how to set those up and how some of the pitfalls you might run into and how to deal with those. At least the pitfalls I dealt with and how I dealt with them. So starters, you're going to go to download Mission Planner. So just run a Google search, Mission Planner Home, Mission Planner, installing Mission Planner. Mission Planner only runs on Windows, unfortunately. Some people have gotten it working on Mono so that they can run on Windows and Mac, but whenever I tried, my efforts failed miserably. So I wouldn't recommend it. Use Q Ground Control for those platforms But then again, they don't have the simulation capabilities, but whatever. So you're going to go to the latest mission planner. I do not want to install this again, but I already have it installed, so I'm just going to click cancel. But you're going to see this screen, probably this screen. The docs aren't updated totally fast, so there's a chance the screens might look slightly different, but don't run the initial wizard unless you are actually setting up a PixHawk. So eventually you're going to get to something that looks like this. So it's going to be update found. Updates are good. I'm not going to install this one right now though. All right, so you see here, this should be how you see things. If you don't see all of these options up here, you need to enable advanced settings here in layout. Its simulation isn't supposed to show up in basic layout, but for some reason it is right now. I don't know why. Anyways, you should be seeing simulation tab. So the simulation tab is pretty cool. To make simulation more user-friendly, Michael Laborn, the developer of Mission Planner, has included a link basically has included an interface so that you can run so that Mission Planner will do the hard lifting of downloading, running, and connecting this. Now there are a couple pitfalls that I'll get to later, but before we get to that, I think we should go over how to install Xplane 10. Now Xplane 10 you can install from a disk or something, but I found the easiest way of installing it is through Steam. Xplane 10 does cost $59. Xplane 11 is out now, so if I had the money, I would probably just buy that now. But I already have Xplane 10, and I like it a lot. So I'm going to show you that basically how to download Steam. It's pretty self-explanatory, but just click install Steam here. You'll be running through some menu options, and then you'll probably get a desktop icon like this. So when you open Steam, you're going to have your own library, store, so that you can look through that stuff. This is my Steam account. Apparently, I guess you can spam me now. So these are the titles I have. So if you haven't logged in before, you'll go up here and log in. I should really obscure this or make this not public so that people don't just have my Steam information. But yeah, so that's how you do that. And you're going to want to install it that way and just log in. I think I'm going a little bit too far over this. Eventually you're going to open it up. Steam has some cool options. You can actually make your own planes, which I've been working on a little bit. I haven't really figured it out yet, but I'm gonna run run Xplane 10. I think people are doing a pretty good job of getting the everything working with Xplane 11, but it's not officially supported yet. So I fly at Webster Field because that's where our competition is each year. You can just use this airport code to find it. Go to radio control, GPPT 60. This is the one I've been working on to make it more custom. But for now, let's just use this one. Just look at regular settings and fly with these options. And in a previous video, I said that Mission Planner was slow. I meant to say Xplane is slow. Xplane does not load very fast. Now let's just wait for it to load. Lots of scenery files. Xplane 10 is a pretty big program. Even the basic install is about 20 gigabytes. So make sure you have enough hard drive space. Seems particularly slow. Okay, good. We're on loading aircraft. We'll be through this pretty soon. I'm running this on a MacBook Pro that's been dual booted, but this is the default view. I don't really find it that useful. Oh. Looks like... Okay. I accidentally had the throttle on my joystick too high when I started up. Okay, just to configure X-Plane 10, you're going to need to mess with the net connections and the data input-output. But the first thing I would do is go to joystick and equipment and set up your joystick. So if you are just starting off new and you've never configured the joystick before, it took me forever to get my joystick to work correctly with X-Plane 10. But eventually, once you go into settings and devices, go to USB. Why doesn't it say that there is a USB? Okay, so I'm using an Xbox 360 controller. As long as it's showing up here and saying that there's no driver issues, X-Plane 10 will eventually recognize it. But you may have to restart X-Plane or restart your operating system. That's what solved it for me when I was first getting this started. Initially, you're going to want to calibrate joystick hardware. And once you do calibrate joystick hardware, these will turn red. And then you just start like going through the full throttle options. And it'll figure out what the limits are and set those as regular. If you want to look up what buttons do what and what keys do what, look here. The only one that I find to be very important is the landing brakes or B. I'm going to reload this situation because I accidentally had my throttle started when and you have to save your situations. Once you get a situation you like, I recommend going to situations and saving it, or else you will eventually have to spend a lot of time going through menus just to get a situation that you shouldn't have had to go through menus to get. All right, so other thing I want to go over is views. When I'm flying, I like using this view, which is heads-up display. When I'm doing simulation, I like looking at it through chase. If you need to mess around with the keys a little bit. So here you can see what a basic Model RC plane looks like in X-Plane 10. Pretty cool, right? It's beautiful. All right, I'm gonna switch back. And if you're practicing for the like Model RC, I would go with linear spot, or still spot. They're the same, but linear spot, if you're moving when you go into linear spot, it'll keep moving with you. But if I haven't started yet, for some reason, I'm just getting used to clicking Shift 1. And remember these commands because you probably end up using them a lot. But linear spot, it sort of just keeps view with what you're doing. So I'm going to turn off the landing brakes, which you can't see because they're on my keyboard, by pressing B. And now I'm going to turn up the throttle. Why isn't the throttle working? I have control surfaces. Why isn't the throttle working? These are all excellent, fun things that you get to do. Sometimes things just don't work perfectly. I'm just going to try reloading the aircraft. Okay, good, I think. So now I'm going to go to Shift 1. And brakes are off. Okay, for some reason the engine had stopped running. It's probably just me not paying attention. So this is just the idle of the engine. Now I'm going to throttle up. So as you remember, I'm in linear spot right now. I completely forgot that I had my pitch inversed. That's embarrassing. Why isn't it reloading the aircraft? Okay, I'm more used to flying in this. Alright, so now I'm flying. I've been messing around a bit with inverting my pitch, because sometimes people I fly with do it the other way.
TCAS alert.
Alright, so if you get to the point where you can fly manually like this, you're ready to go on to the next plane. Oh yeah,
TCAS alert.
other good tool that you're going to have, press P to pause. That's always useful. Alright, so if you're going to set this up for simulation, you're going to want to go to, you're going to need to set up the data input and net connections. So as you see here, here, you need to set up these things. Xplane 10 does not know to talk to the executable, so you need to tell it how to. There is a guide here. At the moment, it's its information isn't correct. Hopefully that'll get fixed soon. So you need to change the IP addresses here. This screen is correct. Just do what's on this screen. I'll do it now. I'll show you now what it's supposed to look like. So you go to net connections, data, this IP address, this port number. Make sure you're receiving on this port. And I can't remember if these do anything, if this does anything, but they need to not be what they were before. This needs to be 49000, 49002, 49003. You can use other ports, but this is the default, and I recommend it because I know it works. All right, so right now it's saying sending data messages. Yours is not going to say that. Yours is going to say not sending packet, there was nothing to send, because you don't have anything to send. So in previous versions of the software simulation, you'd need to remember which one of these is which. But I'll show you something cool. So, all right, so these are all different data sets that are supposed to be communicated over that systems diagram I showed you earlier. So I'm going to turn them all off. No data sets being sent. So now I'm going to go back to net connections. And now it's going to say, all right, I don't know why that was successful. Usually there's an error message here if you've turned off all of your data sets. Let me see if it still connects. Aha, 20 seconds ago. Since I turned off the data sets, it's not sending anything. The send was successful, but now that it doesn't have anything to send, it's getting kind of confused. All right, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to turn on at least one data set so that it can at least set up a connection. I believe this is one that's going to get turned on later, so I'm going to connect to that one. I go back to net connections. See, now it's happy again. This is not mentioned in the article, but I put in an issue request on the GitHub. It should get fixed. All right, so here you're going to stay on the simulation tab. Here it's going to be something dumb because your default point is going to be in the middle of the ocean. It'll refix itself once that gets fixed. So go here to Xplane so it knows what it's going to be communicating on, and go to plane. So now it's downloading the executable, it's running it. If you see, it's opening up okay, so since I've done this before, it's sort of just automatically connected here, but that's not going to be the case for you. It's going to ask you for an IP address, and when it asks for the IP address, put in the 127.00.1, whatever it was we put here. Put in this, and then this one's going to be a little bit confusing, but do not put in this port number because you're not going to be communicating on this port number. You're going to be communicating on, if you remember this diagram, that was the port number. The port number you entered in here is so that these two can talk to each other. They're different. I don't know why it's not the same here. I think it's because that's for the different other simulator. You're going to be putting in this port number. Put in 5760 when you get it to pop up here. So I'm going to disconnect and see if I can get this screen to pop up. So TCP 5760 fixed one. Okay, see, this is the screen that you're going to have pop up. Make sure that this port number under the remote host, enter in this. Okay. And port this one. Okay, so now it's going to try and connect over this, and it's going to succeed. Yes, it succeeded. Good. Okay, great. So I paused this here. I don't really know how they square away the pausing with everything else, but they seem fine with it. All right, so assuming you've gotten to this point, I'm going to click unpause. Oh, I have no throttle now. You know why I have no throttle now? Because it's doing a Mavlink connection and it hasn't been armed. So look here in actions. So I'm going to arm. See, now I have throttle. I can throttle up. Okay, fun things. Cool. So you see how on the screen here it's doing the telemetry? That's because it's, has a Mavlink connection. It's getting the Mavlink telemetry data. Also you notice that this is not the same as the real map. X-plane maps are not perfect. I kind of wish there was. I'd like to simulate things a little bit more closely on geographic landmarks. But, okay, let's show you some of the other cool things that you can do. I'm trying to just fly with one control. And on my thumb I only have throttle and rudder, so you get to watch me fly with just those two controls. All right, so you can set waypoints. Also here's the altitude. We're near sea level right now. That's C. All right, so I'm gonna add some waypoints. Here's a waypoint. 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 They're at altitude 100. I'm fine with that. I'm gonna write those waypoints to the executable. And now we're gonna go to flight data, which is where this control is happening. And let's see if we can set it into auto mode. Set mode. Cool. So you see now it's doing all these cool controls. Here, I am not doing that. That is all being done by the autopilot. So you see now it's trying to hit waypoint 1 at 100 meters because that is the altitude that I set on that waypoint. So, oh no, it's trying to hit waypoint. What is it doing? Oh, it already hit those waypoints, so it's fine with that. It's going to waypoint 3. Anyways, there's a lot to learn here. So anyways, that wraps up all of the main problems and pitfalls that you'll run into setting up this software. I need to figure out how to hide my personal information. All right, and you can set up takeoff stuff. Just remember arm, disarm. You can change modes to stabilized. Yeah. Well, good luck with your simulating, and have a nice day.